Of course, some artists find inspiration in nature. For Irene Antonez, though, nature has always been calling. Raised in a family deeply connected to the natural world, she didn't just discover fungi, she's been listening to them her entire life. In this episode of the MycoGeeky podcast, we sit down with Irene, an artist and musician whose work doesn't just capture the beauty of mushrooms, it flows from the same deep ancient connection that fungi have with the earth. From her early influences to her microscopic explorations of mycelium, we'll explore how mushrooms have shaped her art, her rituals, and her creative spirit. If you've ever felt like fungi speak in whispers only a few can hear, or wondered how mycelium can guide an artist's hand, this is an episode you won't want to miss. Yo, welcome to the MycoGeeky podcast, where we explore the fascinating world of mushrooms and the people who love them. From expert cultivators to passionate foragers, we bring you deep conversations, cutting-edge insights, and everything mycology. Whether you're a seasoned mycophile or just curious, we invite you to geek out with us on the wonders of fungi and join the mushroom movement. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the MycoGeeky podcast, the show where agar plates are sacred canvases, and the only thing more mesmerizing than a fruiting monotub is a perfectly poured petri dish. I'm your host, MycoGeeky, here to help you dig deeper into the world of mushrooms, cultivation, and creativity, because let's be real, fungi are the ultimate artists, and I mean, we're just trying to keep up. Tonight, we're joined by the incredible Irene Antonez, an artist, musician, and mycophile whose work doesn't just depict fungi, it channels them. If you've ever looked at a mushroom and thought, man, this thing is a masterpiece, Irene takes that feeling and turns it into a breathtaking work of art. She merges microscopic research and a deep reverence for the mycelial intelligence of mushrooms to create work that speaks directly to anyone who's ever fallen under fungi's magical spells. We'll explore her journey from a traditional fine artist to a myco-inspired visionary, her role in the Mushroom Magic documentary, and how she sees fungi is not just subjects, but creative collaborators. Plus, we'll get into her artistic rituals, her favorite fungal pigments, and because I know you're wondering, which mushroom species she thinks deserves to be bioluminescent. All right, folks, week 5 of MycoGeeky.com being live. If you're not on the email list yet, now's the time, because next week's winner is scoring a stunning pair of handmade spore print earrings from Chris Hansen Studio. A perfect way to wear your mycophilia with style. Signing up is free, winning is easy, and who doesn't love free stuff? Head over to MycoGeeky.com, get on the list, and you might be next to win. But before we jump in, please support the podcast on Patreon. It helps keep the show going and lets us bring you more deep dives into the world of fungi. And of course, hit subscribe, smash the like, ring the bell, and let's get into it. All right, welcome to the show, Irene Antonez. What's up? How you doing?
All great. Thank you. Excited to be here.
Let's go way back. What were you doing in life before mushrooms kind of inhabited your creative process?
Well, I'm a professional artist, so all my education was in arts. And at the same time, I've always been into nature. So if that counts of what I was doing, then I was spending a lot of time in nature. And that brings me back to my family roots, because it all started like actually generations before me. So I am coming from Russia, and obviously have Slavic roots. Obviously, everyone is totally obsessed with mushroom picking, and that was the one of the first things that I learned. Actually, like 2 things: mushroom picking and painting. So 3 years old, me painting, and then mushroom picking. And my first words, I learned names of mushrooms, because my parents would always take me to the forest, and I would already like knew which ones to pick, which not, chanterelle, boletus, and so on. So that love comes from childhood, and then I also had mushroom painters generations back, and also my grandfather was completely obsessed with mushrooms. He was like having at home all these mushroom encyclopedias, and yeah, it's absolutely amazing in all different languages, because at that time Russia was also like part with other countries, like Germany, part of Germany. And so he has books in German about mushrooms. He has Czech books about mushrooms and Russian, and like I would like read through all of that. So inspiring. And then, yeah, parallel to this, I was always studying art from my young years. So I was really never thinking about any other way for me. Um, Only thing that I tried to study more like design oriented. I actually graduated from industrial design, bachelor's, and I was thinking that could be more like uh, quote serious, which now I understand that actually being an artist is super serious. It actually, I'm taking it very seriously. This is my profession for life. But at the time, I believed the prejudice of artists being never successful and artists being poor and living on the streets and drinking. So I decided, I have to try something more serious. So I tried industrial design. I graduated, and even during these industrial design studies, I would always be drawn to nature. Like for example, my final project, my diploma work, was about this laboratory in the ocean, floating and researching the ocean. So, like, I was always drawn towards nature. And my favorite classes were always like art history and painting. So I would just paint for myself, and then I started like painting also portraits and all kinds of stuff, just to like kind of get acquainted with the how to be an artist and how to make living this way. And then I got also 2 masters in fine arts. So yeah, it was always art.
All right, 2 masters. Well, what do you need 2?
Because I was still trying to pursue this more serious direction. I thought, design would be more serious because it's a little bit half technical, right? It's not completely art. And so I went for future design, it was called. That's how I actually moved. I'm based in Czech Republic for many years now. That's how I moved here. I came to study my master's. And it was called future design, my first master's, but it's a master in art, so arts master. So it was like all about this very weird intersection of everything, and I loved it because it gave us so much freedom to all the students to choose what they want to work from. And that's where my first seeds of like my own style started to really bloom, because I was able to do research of whatever I really liked. It was very experimental. And at that time, I also got my first microscopic glass for one of the projects. And I started like to look into all this microscopy world. I started to look at the moss and lichens and mushrooms under microscope. Got incredibly inspired. I got totally obsessed. I would take the microscope everywhere with me just to look at this stuff. And I did some futuristic design projects based on these microscopic inspirations. And yeah, that eventually brought me to my own style. The next step for me was, I was like, okay, I guess, it's time to just accept that I'm going to be an artist and get this fine art degree.
Were you still producing art for a final thesis, or was it also more like art studies or contextualizing understanding of modern art? Like how much of it was you creating art versus thinking about art?
A lot of creating, actually, because again, as I mentioned, we had a lot of freedom. So my like group leader was very like supportive of me, trying to turn whatever direction, combine it with my own. And my final project for my first master degree was this a platform that I fully illustrated, like It was a platform called Humanum Lignum, and it was about similarities between trees and humans. And I would do all these illustrations of how as humans we are similar to the trees, and in different ways how our organism works similar to the tree. And there was also this amazing book about trees by Peter Volchleben, I think. And it's like about how trees communicate and all these things. It's amazing book. It influenced me a lot. And that's how I graduated from there with this platform. But it was like fully illustrated. So I did a lot of artwork, illustration work.
I got to ask a question to get to another question. I think you were raised by people who were modeling a love for mushrooms very early on. It was an integral part of their culture and their identity. You had, boy, how lucky were you that you had a mushroom obsessed grandfather? That's awesome. So you probably associated closeness with your family to mushrooms even.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're totally right.
So it's interesting because I did not the woods, the forest, that was for me an escape from family.
Okay.
That was something different, but I really love this idea that for you, it became really associated with love and connection in your family and all that. I want to hear like early Irene stories of you sitting next to your grandfather or your mother or somebody and having mushrooms sort of be that connector for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like first, going to the forest, of course, and like it's a little play, kind of fun game that we played, who sees the mushroom first. And I would be so happy when when I won my father or my mother. I'm like, yeah, I did it first. I found it first. So first, like we would spend the whole day in the forest like that, playing, just exploring. And then we would come back with the full baskets. And usually we would spend the evening cleaning the mushrooms till like late night. And I would like when I was very little, they wouldn't let me do this because I would only do mess. But I would go like around my parents. I was excited, and yeah, I would just look how they clean it. Unfortunately, with my grandfather, I was very late child, so I didn't. I don't remember much. Like he unfortunately died very young, so I didn't meet him properly. Like only when I was really small. Um, but he was, yeah, totally obsessed, and he would win like mushroom picking competitions. He was really cool, but he was professor of mathematics. Like he was incredible. And yeah, so we would have like part of the mushrooms drying on the heater for the ones that we save for the winter. Then part of the mushrooms to the soup. Let's say my mom does amazing, just a soup of boletes, really great. So we would have a fresh soup. And if we had a lot, then we would probably also marinate part of them in the jars, also for the winter. And then, when we all come together as a family, like the whole family, then we would have them always on the table. And, my aunt or my mom would always like show off their best marinated boletes. And yeah, and then my mom also does incredibly tasty fried boletes, or like just the mushrooms. Like she just fries them in some perfect way, very very long time, that they become just like the seventh wonder.
So first off, this is you're fascinating in the sense that most people I interview who talk about their first mushroom memory, it's, oh, I remember seeing a mushroom as a kid and, I picked it and I threw it against a tree. A lot of people really their first mushroom memory is really about the first time they tried magic mushrooms in high school or college. So it's fascinating, and I'm not gonna lie, it makes me fairly envious that
Oh,
it was so integrated into your childhood. So your grandfather, you didn't get to know. I can relate to that. I have to assume that the presence he left was all these books.
it's a great gift, absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yeah.
also my, when, for example, we go to the forest and let's say we don't know some of the mushrooms and we're like, oh gosh, it's such a pity our grandfather is not here. Like he would knew, he was obsessed.
Man, that's just such a cool way to grow up. I was going to ask you a question, something to the effect of, was there a defining moment or a certain experience that really just galvanized your love for mushrooms? I almost feel like that's a silly question at this point. But
Mm,
do you have certain standout memories that just you cherish so much that you just couldn't imagine ever letting go of your very organic love for mushrooms at this point?
oh, yeah, as you said, it's really like I don't imagine myself separate from mushrooms. So it's really hard in that sense because I grew up with mushrooms. But I would say like the first time trying magic mushrooms definitely like gave it a whole new like depth. So and definitely I like when you do it you cannot like go back to who you were, right? Um, there is just another portal opens and it's forever, and that obviously brings another depth to the work that I do. But I wouldn't say like there was like this crazy changing moment. I mean, step by step. It's just that before I started like really painting mushrooms, I was just loving them. But now when I'm like painting them as a way, is my profession actually. And when I had so many like different mushroom related experiences, meeting mushroom related people, it just all became even more deeper. Um, and also, I would say that a huge influence for me was the Marilyn Sheldrake book, of course. Like, it's just impressed me a lot because it just showed me that I loved mushrooms, but apparently there is so much more to them. Like, there is a whole science behind it. And then I also got so many more mushroom books like radical mycology and all these fantastic fungi, many of them. I really got into like mushroom literature.
All right, so when I look at your paintings, quite a bit in your work, I'm always asking myself, I wonder who her influences were. Like who are the artists that she is just head over heels for, enamored by?
When I was studying my first master degree, and I mentioned that I got my microscopic glass, at that same time I found this book on the internet called Art Forms in Nature. And that's how my total obsession with Ernst Haeckel started. He is this first scientist slash artist, and that impressed me so much because I just love the combination of art and science. I believe it's necessary for the world actually to like for scientists to open up a little bit more and like be more inclusive of other creatives. But anyway, I got so impressed by this book. I ordered it immediately. I when first time when I saw it, I couldn't just stop looking at all these illustrations and being absolutely amazed by the beauty of the world that he did. And also I was just very much influenced by this symmetry and by the fact that he did it all with his hands, just looking into the microscope. And I started to read more about him. There is also a great book called Invention of Nature. It's actually about Humboldt, but apparently there was connection between them. It's very interesting. I really advise this book, Invention of Nature. There's a whole chapter about Ernst Haeckel there. Um, and then he influenced so many artists along the way. It's incredible. So I would sometimes just like try to like look into this book and create my own imaginary organism or something like that. So I think like his, as you mentioned, organic ways, probably some of them come from there. And it's like this, I love this old scientific style, but I like to add more fun to it. So I like to combine like this kind of combination of my weird exotic imagination with something that I see in nature. And also, when you said organic, I think I just look so much at nature. I spend a lot of time in forests and botanical gardens just looking at things. And it's just so imprinted in my brain that I think it comes out like naturally, these curves and stuff like that. Um, More artists, of course, there are so many. There were these woman travelers, botanical artists. The Maria Sibylla Merian, she was also like a little bit revolutionary because she produced this work of how actually plants are connected to insects, and that was not a thing that was at that time. Like it was all like it was something like she produced a book, Metamorphosis of insects, plants, something like that, and the response was quite people were surprised because they before that they didn't have like this thought of connection between all of this, and she saw it as a full like circle. um, she would look how the insect would be born and grow and on all this metamorphosis thing. And about the Marian North, she was also quite exciting artist. Not only in a way that she I think she never married. She traveled alone everywhere to these colonies, to these exotic countries, and she would paint with oils. And that was not a thing again. Botanical illustration was very limited to like either I think it was aquarels mostly, like very precise, very like scientific kind of type of painting. But with her, she actually brought so much more color and life to the paintings because she painted with oils. But not only this, she would always have these backgrounds, landscapes. So she would also introduce the whole environment where this particular plant would be growing. And that is just fascinating. Also was quite revolutionary.
The environment in most of these paintings I'm looking at are just she's she captures the whole environment for sure. Whereas like Ernst Haeckel, it's very much staged. It definitely has a staged quality. I'm looking at some Marianne stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, it almost has a feeling of a photograph sometimes, where it's composed and yet it has a unruly natural energy to it, which is really cool.
She produced a lot of work, and with the detail that she was making it, and she gave it all to the Kew Gardens in London. They have a gallery full of her like paintings that, like, if you google her gallery, it's like a salon type. Paintings are everywhere.
Yeah, man, thanks for tuning me into this artist. I got another rabbit hole to go down now. This is nice.
One more artist to mention. No, actually two or three. I want to mention Arcimboldo.
Yes, this is the portraits with fruit and stuff like that. Yes. What a cool. Yeah, this guy's so cool. Fact that he was doing this back in the day is just insane to me.
And he was a person at the court. So he was like a part of the highest highs. So he was painting these kings and all the royal society. And very interestingly, he had an access to these cabinets of curiosities. That is so cool. Like he would see all these exotic things that other artists probably wouldn't just have access to. and he was living at the age of these great discoveries, and like all these travelers started to go outside and bring all this back, all these exotic fruits and different bones, and he would like look at these hidden, exotic things and get inspired. And I think also the most inspiring thing about him is I love his compositions. They are just so perfect, perfectly done, perfectly planned. And I love like creating these different type of combined compositions out of different objects. So he is definitely an influence for me.
This is a very postmodern thing he's doing during, I have to imagine, he's much more couched in an era of modernism and perspective and all that kind of stuff, and yet he's really subverting that trope and doing something completely different.
And very interestingly, he was forgotten for several centuries completely. And somehow, like, even he had followers, people who would paint in the same style, but it was also kind of lost. So only when the surrealism appeared, that's when he's coming back. Because for surrealists and these type of people, it started to be like very interesting and very connected probably to subconscious, and that's how he's coming back.
Yeah. All right. You said you had one or two more artists.
Yeah, well, it's obvious that, but I have to mention Bosch. Like, it's it's just, I think it's, I would say it's influence for any artist, but he's amazing in all senses. Especially, actually, similarly to Arcimboldo, he was this guy who painted just differently from everyone else. And at the same time, he was not an outsider, and he was actually celebrated in his own time. And the royalty would buy his work and give him these orders. So it's a super interesting. And then many people also have the theory that he was probably living at the same time when what is it called, the ergot fungus was growing up on the rye, and so people would go crazy, and probably he was part of this. I have a book that also says maybe he was part of these closed Mason societies, and he would probably be part of some rituals. There are many theories, but the book that I have says, first of all, about Bosch that he was just deeply spiritual guy. He was very spiritual painter, and it was really a very religious time. And he was just really, really impressed by the mystery of hell and heaven, and you will find a lot of this crazy imagination in his work. We'll never know. We'll never know. But it's just fascinating as it was many centuries back, and it's still fascinating now. It's a great mystery, but really impressive. I was just in Vienna recently visiting Academy of Arts, and there's his other work, also like a triptych. Very, very beautiful. I just sat for like a long time just looking at it in silence. Yeah, just.
Let's go way back to some of your early art. I don't know if we got to go, let's not go back to you as a child, but let's go back to you finally saying, I'm an artist. That's who I am. That's who I want to be. And I'm going to start producing art. If we looked at some of your early work in that phase, would we, how similar to what you're doing now is it? Would we even recognize it as your own?
Well, if we, it depends what period we take, but like I would say 5 years ago, yes, because this is where the whole thing started. Like while finishing my master's, getting into microscopy, getting into like Madeline Sheldrake's books, it all was like kind of similar period. So I was already like influenced by all of this a little bit. And my first solo exhibition happened also 5 years ago, and that's where you could see already how it started. Like you could see some connection. Some works were more connected to like also animal world, some futuristic stuff, but I had this whole collection that I painted and it was about microscopy of lichens and mushrooms and mosses. And I would say yes, you could see how it brought me where I am now. Obviously, I changed a lot and I experimented and so on, but you could recognize the style. Yeah. Um, but before that, probably not exactly. Like I was still doing different stuff and portraits as well.
All right. So, do you feel like to go back to the way your work has evolved or is evolving? Do you feel like for where you are at now, was there one piece that you did that really sort of galvanized where you are at right now, where you are like, this is my world right now, this is my realm, this is what I do? Um, was there one piece or I mean, there doesn't have to have been one piece. I'm just curious if maybe there was a piece where something clicked and you said, this felt really good and I want to keep doing it this way.
Yeah, many pieces. It's really hard to answer, but well, because I have this work behind me. These are like there are three canvases like these. They are 2 meter high, so it was really long work. I was working like for 1 year on this, and it was like a very important project for me. And it involves like all this mushroom and microscopic research. So I definitely felt like that at the point when I did them. But there are many more other works, and I think each one symbolizes some new uh, progression or new experiment for me. Yeah.
Yeah, so that makes total sense from where I'm sitting because right, you were brought up in the woods. You are in love with nature. You see the ever evolving, ever changing rhythm and cadence and cycle in nature. So it to me it would make sense that that's exactly what he said. Yes, cool. All right. All right, so let's move. So now that we kind of have looked at your history and your evolution as an artist, I want to get a little deeper into the creative process, the rituals of you as an artist. So you've shared a little bit about how buying a microscope influenced you, how reading your grandfather's books on mushrooms have influenced you. But let's go like even deeper into that. Before you get the impetus for a new work, um, like what is happening in your mind? Is there something that has to click? Um, what's happening before you grab a paintbrush, before you pull out a canvas, before you do any physical things to prepare for the act of painting? What's happening in your mind, in your heart, in your body at that moment that gets you to take that step towards, okay, I'm doing this now. This is the next thing I'm doing.
If we don't talk about physical things, I have these glimpses of some images in my brain. Usually, some of them I skip, which is a not good thing. There is a whole book about it because they say that it's like these gifts from the universe, and you either like produce them or you leave them and then they disappear and someone else will produce them. But I try as much as I can when I get these glimpses, I sketch it just quickly or like remember the idea that is behind it. I don't know. As an example, okay, I have this rare mushroom piece and I'm like, oh, rare mushrooms. They could be like a universe in a circle and do something like this. Just this is just an example. And every time some quick but exciting idea comes, I try to either remember it or quickly sketch it or just write in my notes, three main words that kind of explain the concept. Um, but very big thing for me is sketchbooks, and in the last years, I got really serious about that. Um, So I try to always have a sketchbook with me and take it to wherever I go in nature or whenever I travel. Um, and it can be just repeating the things I see in botanical gardens, while mushroom picking, or it can be something completely out of an imagination, just because I'm in certain place and it feels like the right atmosphere for creating something. I think there are endless ways of how it comes, this muse. um, but yeah, like I used to be more direct, so I would just jump directly to the canvas. But now I'm much more nerdy. I read 100,000 books. I write notes for myself. I do some whatever essays for myself, sketch, do planning. I like scientific stuff. So, and after that, I would like only start working.
So in music, in my experience, you can either begin with the lyric or the hook or the theme, right? You can start sort of in the written language, like a linguistic origin for something. Or it can come from something's happening in my life. Oh, I just broke up with my girlfriend, and so I'm sort of in that headspace. I have ideas. I just did a similar thing. I was doing a certain episode, and as I was working on the episode, this for some random reason, like just this little hook hopped in my head, and couldn't get it out. And so you gotta do something with it. When that thing kind of takes over your thinking, then you gotta do something with it. But then also, particularly in hip hop music, there's a long tradition these days of the artist comes to a studio with a producer, and the producer just plays them beats, just beats. Here's a groove, here's a beat, and then they go, "Oh shit, I love this one," and then it inspires them, and they hop in the booth, and they just start riffing and coming up with stuff, and so a song can start that way. So with I'm trying to imagine that scenario with painting. I'm imagining sometimes you might look at a thing and just need to take a note of, oh, I really loved this plant or this mushroom, and I'm going to draw some of the shapes I was the most interested in. But I imagine other times it can be countless other things. It could be color combinations. It could be a technique. It could be you seeing something at a museum and go, oh, that this little brush technique is cool. And then you just sit around for days thinking like the ways you could incorporate that into what you're doing. Do you have so I think what I was trying to get at with the first question, I did a bad job. Um, is there this period where it has to kind of stay inside you for a while and develop and grow, and then there's a point where you go, I'm ready to hit the canvas now?
Yeah, absolutely. I can give you example. Like my latest work that I just had vernissage like 2 days ago. I opened my new exhibition, and it's okay. I'm going to share the idea. So, for years, I've been painting these compositions um, out of mushrooms, plants, sometimes fruits, and other microscopic organisms, and they would be built in certain form like that, and people would always like tell me, it looks like a woman's reproductive system. And at first I didn't pay attention. Then people started like repeatedly coming back to me and saying this. And I was like, okay, maybe I should, research more into this. At the same time, when I would take mushrooms, I would have these very interesting experiences where I would feel this feminine presence very strongly, and I just it was overwhelming. Like it was beautiful, but I couldn't like get wrap my head around this. um and it's been like all of these processes were happening for years, and at the beginning I wouldn't think I will produce a whole a whole series about this. I didn't think I will do paintings about this because it's also quite intimate topic, right? And I started reading about it. I got more books. I started sketching sometimes. I started looking into women's anatomy. And it was all like coming together for several years. And only now, like I was ready to share this work. Um, and it's basically all these mandala, black mandala compositions on black mandalas that are made of mushrooms, sometimes plants and other organisms, and they are all like somehow similar to either ovaries or clitoris and other parts of women's reproductive system. And yeah, I wouldn't be able to do it, immediately. It took me some time. It took me several years to also be ready personally to open up like that, because it's a quite intimate and fragile topic, but also artistically to process it, to plan it. Yeah, it's quite huge work. And that happens with many projects.
I had no idea. I've been, I see all your stuff. I never put two and two together. That's what you're doing. And now that you're saying that, I see it. So what's fascinating to me about what you just said is in contrast to, you mentioned Hannah Yada, who clearly is not afraid to create in a very repetitive way a lot of the external physical sensual forms, feminine forms. You're actually, in doing this, you're recognizing, this is very Ernst Haeckel of you, you're recognizing, this sort of iconic shape or pattern, right? I think one thing that makes these early artists who, the Ernst Haeckels, the Leonardo da Vinci's, these early illustrator artists who were also scientists, right? They had to be both because they couldn't take a photo of it. They couldn't photograph it. They had to paint it. So especially if they traveled across the ocean to go to some foreign land, it was equally important that they capture, that they take notes, that they all this stuff, they capture all the stuff so that they're getting the form right and the size right and all this kind of stuff. And so you're recognizing a pattern or a shape or a form that any of us who are observant, or particularly people who are psychonauts, who frequently have psychedelic journeys, they start becoming very aware of the texture and the patterns and the shapes and the energy in things, in all the things. And you start seeing, you don't just look down at the grass. This happened to me this last summer, where I was on like a heavy museum dose. And every time I looked down at the grass, it wasn't just grass, it was like fucking grass, like so much grass. And I swear to God, I could just feel them vibrating and growing and all the energy. And so as an artist, you have this opportunity where you're really just observing more carefully. This is a wonderful trait of scientists, but it's obviously a wonderful trait of artists, and so crucial that when these early artist scientists did what they did, it just, to me, it totally makes sense. But you're doing something really interesting because you're taking a feminine form that is not external. You're not doing the curve of the hip. You're not doing
There is enough of this.
do you know what I mean? You're not doing all the external shape of the feminine. You're taking, and that's been done a billion times. You're taking this deeper, more internal sacred geometry, sacred shape,
Yeah, yeah.
and then making like a flourish off of that, using that as the trellis, the anchor.
And it provokes very interesting and important conversations, because Parallel to this, I was reading, like, there were several books that really inspired me a lot for this. Also, there is one book of this. It's called Psychedelic Mysteries of the Feminine. And there is also very popular Terence McKenna book, Food of Gods. And he talks about these rituals of goddess and how actually everything came from these feminine goddess kind of rituals. And historically, the nature, just as women was suppressed, right? So we are both like this kind of, how to say, nature and women were limited and were not allowed to be open up like in this free wild form, and kind of always controlled, always limited. So there is so much more, there is so much to talk about. So it's like celebration of this feminine form in their wild and free form through nature, because it's very pretty much connected.
All right, so let's talk about something that came up in an episode recently. We talked about flow state. You know, a lot of artists describe this flow state energy, this state of being they get into when they're creating, when they're producing music, when they're painting, when they're dancing, when they're doing whatever their art is. Do you feel like you do your best work when you were in a flow state like this? And then I think the piggyback question to that is, as somebody who is psychedelic friendly, do you ever use psychedelics to pull you into a state like that?
Good question. Oh well, let's start from the end of the question. I don't. It's gonna sound probably surprising, but I don't see psychedelics as the main like vision driver of my art. If you understand what I mean, I see them more like as a therapy and as something that brings a deeper level to my work, philosophically, mentally, but visually. I, to be honest, like I have sometimes such intense stuff in my head when I'm just walking on the street. So I call it naturally high. So I would say sometimes I get really strong images just out of nowhere in my brain, and that's enough. But the psychedelic experiences can definitely bring more depth and more ideas. You know, as just as I said about this feminine project, that was very important part, because it was like just mushrooms trying to tell me, you know, there is something there, like go deeper, like discover it. um, and that's how they pushed me, so things like that. And what was the beginning of the question? The flow state, right? How I know that I'm in this flow state is that I stop noticing the time. This is always the sign. If I stop, like I paint, and then something happens. I don't know, a call or something interrupts me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, 3 hours, 4 hours, and that moment I know it's been like this flowing state. But otherwise, I don't know if that's my case, but I'm a very nerdy person, so I take it all very seriously. So it's not always like a flow, and you don't want to paint every day, but if you take it as a profession, you do. So sometimes you force yourself. Sometimes it's not all flowers and butterflies. Like sometimes it's really painful. Like sometimes you just hate everything and yourself and things around. And the last thing you want is to paint, and you're so judgmental of yourself. You're critical, but you have to like step over all of these and just like say, you know, what I see now is not what I will see at the end of the work. It's, let me just be here. It's very, it's a lot of fighting sometimes. But the more you do it is the only way. The more you do it, the more professional and calm you become, and the more easier for you to like wait until the flow state comes, before it's not flow, before it's probably sometimes a fight or a hard time deciding. choosing stuff.
I just saw this thing. I think it was literally this morning. It was a little video on Instagram, and it was I think a teacher in a classroom talking to some younger kids about resilience. And the teacher was saying, we talk about how important it is to have resilience these days. We're talking about it. It's this real big buzzword. But what we don't talk about is how when you are in the moment of being resilient, it feels awful.
Uh-huh.
It feels terrible.
Yes.
And it isn't until afterwards that you have that perspective. Oh, I was being resilient then. It feels awful. And so she said that, and when you were saying what you just said about, once it becomes a profession, you do have to show up every day. You do have to, you got to do the work. You got to keep the practice going. I forget which writing book this is from. I, it might be Writing Down the Bones, but I could be wrong. But there's a saying in writing of if I don't show up from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. every day and sit in front of that typewriter and start banging on the keys, the inspiration never comes. The work never comes.
Exactly.
You
Yeah, yeah,
have to be holding the paint for you. You got to be holding the paintbrush. You got to be dipping it in some paint. You got to be doing something on a canvas, because they don't paint themselves. And so, yeah, I think that resilience, like you just said, it can feel awful sometimes. It can feel like, God, what am I doing? Mushroom
yeah.
cultivators have the same feeling. I have people who come to me and go, God, you know what? I think I'm just awful at this. I'm just going to quit. I can't do this. It's so frustrating. And I always just say, this is okay. Everybody feels this way. This is actually a sign that you are really evolving and becoming a better grower, because you're having these little existential crises. It's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. So I think that's cool how you hit on that. Um, all right, so let's move into maybe a little bit more of the spiritual. I'd like to know, and it doesn't. So I definitely want you to hit on psychedelic experience, but I think the thing I would really love to hear about for you is moments of spiritual awakening or understanding that have come through your art. I know for me with my writing was deeply cathartic. I was always trying to answer a burning question that I had inside myself. I was trying to solve something that didn't make sense. Um, how have you had those moments where you had some sort of spiritual epiphany, or something became more deeply understood for you through the actual practice of being a professional artist?
Yeah, definitely. I just don't know how to put it in words.
Right.
Like, because it's not like
Yeah.
it's
Describe your enlightenment and your awe, please. Yes. No,
yeah.
I understand. Yeah. Sorry.
Don't you
That's sort
just
of,
describe your enlightenment? What's your problem?
uh, yeah. Sorry. That's sort of like a total.
But no, it's a beautiful thought, because like maybe I don't think about it this way for sure, but I now that you said it, I'm like, yeah, with every painting, with every project, how much you put into it, you grow so much, and definitely spiritually. And it's weird because you think, well, you just sit and you paint, you uh, use a pencil, whatever. But yeah, it's actually much deeper, because you're like working on your inner whatever self, and something is happening in these moments. With every little brush stroke, something is happening, and you prove yourself something, or you discover something.
I think I know a better way of saying, or reframing the question. How about this? Would you say that your love for mushrooms is the inspiration and muse for your painting and your art? Or would you say that your art and your painting inspires your love for mushrooms?
No, definitely the first, for sure, for sure. And it's even in a bigger sense, in a sense that, yes, obviously mushrooms inspired bigger percentage of my paintings, but they also are this connector of everything. And they bring all these other perspectives into my work. They remind me, okay, there is, we have a connection with plants because we interact with them. We have connection with trees. We speak about feminine spirit. We speak about the universe. They bring all these different aspects. And we are also so interesting under microscope. Look at this, look at that. Let me show you this. They bring so much. So it looks like through mushrooms, there can be so many different projects can come in my life. And yeah, something else I wanted to mention, but let's see, maybe it comes back to me.
Now you're sounding like me. That's me all the time. I'm like, hey, I got something to tell you. Got something to tell you. Wait. Okay. Oh, I forgot what it was. Yeah, I do that all the time. All right, so let's move into we can't not talk about this because it's so cool, and I'm really excited to show everybody this. You recently were the subject of a documentary project for another creative type person there in Prague, and you did a a little movie called Mushroom Magic.
Yay.
Tell me, how you got involved in the project, what ultimately drew you to say, yeah, let's do this. Let's do a whole project on me and my life with mushrooms.
Okay, well, to start from, I was always dreaming about having some kind of movie experience as an artist, exactly about mushrooms and somehow connected. But I on my own, I didn't know how to organize this because you need a team, you need people who work in the field. Otherwise, it's gonna be some very amateur stuff, and I'm a perfectionist, so I wouldn't do this particular thing alone. So I was like, kind of in the back of my head was always this project, but I was like, maybe one day it will somehow happen. And one day, someone I knew is writing to me that they know someone else who is right now urgently searching for some kind of person who is a little bit weird, but also like interesting and exotic, and to create some kind of story for a short film. And it needs to be done in a few weeks max. Like it has to be done as soon as possible right now. And I'm like, okay, this sounds like me. um, but for this type of projects, I always go with my intuition. So we had a meeting with the director of the film, who wrote later the script. Um, and it just clicked. I felt like we are on the same wave. And also, I pay very big attention to people's reliability. Like if I can rely on them, if I can really work with them, or if it's just words. And in this case, it was a serious person. I could see that he's really like going to work hard. Um, and yeah, it was like really in a few days the script was written, everything was like set, and then we had only 3 days to film because it was super expensive, like professional stuff that we had to rent. They had to rent, so we had very limited time, and we were filming like from early morning till late at night. um, yeah, and 2 days we were filming in my studio. So, oh, you had to see it. It was just completely transformed. Like they were like, oh, we come in the morning with our cameras, and a whole truck arrives. Like these movie trucks. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening? And then my flat just became a movie studio. It was all covered in like all this crazy huge equipment, and it was truly magical experience. I've never done anything like that. It was also a huge challenge because I'm a singer, I'm a performer as well. I work all the time on the stage, but I don't play in movies or something like that. So it was quite scary, but exciting. I decided I should risk and try it. So that's the story. And then last day we were filming in the forest, which was also super beautiful.
You got a taste of just how much work and how many people are involved to make 3-second clip look beautiful. What was it like having your sacred studio space invaded by all these people? Because I know how they work. They just took over. They probably started moving your crap all around. And how did that feel during that process?
It was messy, but they were very respectful, like really respectful of my work, and everything would be discussed. And I think it was really beautiful because they also brought their own vision of how it can be. Because you're when you are with yourself, you're very like focused in on one vision, but when other people come, they also see it in other ways, and it's very beautiful learning process. So um, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed how we could transform it into something new, and I enjoyed that my story can be transformed into a fairy tale. It can be transformed in a environmental fairy tale story, and things can get even deeper, newer meaning.
So you kind of brought up something that I think is very specific to, let's contrast, right? You're a painter. So if we're going to use a sports metaphor, it's like being a marathon runner, right? It's me, I cross the finish line, or it's you cross the finish line. But making movies is more like playing football, right? It's the whole team. The whole team has to know what they're doing. The whole team has to work together, draw off each other's strengths, all that kind of stuff. Did seeing that creative process, that collaborative and creative process, then bring a new context to your individual work? Was there any way that you were just felt, oh, this is, just a new way of thinking about that creative process, being inspired by others or introducing any sort of sense of collaboration into your work? Or did you see that just as like a distinct thing, like that's how that goes and this is how this goes?
I would say, like, I'm very nerdy about collaborations. So usually the collaborations that work for me are with people who take it very seriously, and it's not often like that. So I do have like had and have collaborations with artists and so on, but it doesn't happen like all the time. But I want to say I love working in a team when it's like a real team who is really into the same project and they live for this idea. It was absolutely amazing. Like I think I get so much more productive also when I work in the team. But unfortunately, my profession is very lonely. Um, of course, sometimes like have you watched the movie already or?
I have, yes. Do you want to take a minute and let everybody see it?
Why not?
Okay, let's do it. All right, guys. So we're gonna watch Mushroom Magic, starring our guest here, Irene, and the director is Vartiste. Is that right?
Yeah, artist. Yeah.
Vartiste. Okay, cool.
found my first mushroom when I was 4. Little did I know that was the start of a never-ending love story. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending this talk. My name is Irene Antonez, and I am an artist who is in love with mushrooms. Now, when I say mushrooms, most of you probably are thinking of this, or about magic mushrooms you might have heard of. But there is so much more to fungi kingdom than most of you know. A mushroom is a part of a whole fungal organism. The mushroom pops up above the ground in order to spread its spores and continue its life cycle. The rest of the fungus, mycelium, lives hidden under the ground, forming vast and very intelligent network. Thus, you could say that the mushroom is like an apple and the fungus is the apple tree.
I love it when she talks about this. I'm really proud of her. Irene is a good girl, representing the family, just like the old days. I wish people would buy more of her art. I've been holding myself back to not intervene and throw in the family connections. I wanted to succeed on her own and feel proud of herself, but people are stupid, pouring $1,000 on flashy names. Real art stays on the shelf.
So, why is it important for us to know about fungi? Because they are the oldest creatures on this planet. They first appeared on Earth around 1.5 billion years ago, much before plants and other animals. They are our original ancestors, and thanks to their efforts, life on Earth flourished, and it continues to do so. Mycelium is the part of fungus that grows underground, hidden from the eye. They are thin, thread-like structures that grow and spread through the ground looking for food and nutrients. This way, they digest and recycle all the nutrients from the dead and decomposed matter.
Honey, they don't care about that stuff. Tell them about the mold on their bread. Our Papadan family ripped them off for $3.99. I'm just kidding. Don't turn us in.
Mycelium networks spread under the ground in all directions, forming what is called the Wood Wide Web, the underground internet of the forest. Through this network, plants and trees talk to each other and exchange nutrients that are essential for them. And this exchange happens through fungi.
I'd be cautious mentioning the underground network. Next thing you know, they'll come digging looking for gold.
But probably when you walked in a forest, you never suspected what was going on underground. In fact, 90% of fungi species are unknown to science, hidden from sight, because not all fungi produce mushrooms.
Of course, we stay underground. You'll raise your head above the ground and they'll slap a 40% tax on your forehead. True power stays in the shades. Good luck finding the rest.
Fungi are extremely intelligent species and are the ultimate relationship builders.
You know that saying, if you are shy, do business with fungi. They'll teach you how to network and increase your net worth. But don't tell them how much money we made for you. They'll come looking for us.
Lenny, send the girls over. Somebody gotta let her know she ain't gonna make the speech.
Wake up, Irene! Wake up! Irene! Irene, you must wake up now! Ow! I know how to wake you up. You sing your favorite song. Watch this. Летят гуси, летят гуси.
What?
Listen, Irene, carefully. This is a message for you from the Mycelium family. Before you attend the conference, you must first meet someone. Find a forest on the map that looks like an old man with a broken back with a lake on the top of his head. Find the highest hill and climb to the top. Stand facing south, and a friend of ours will be waiting for you there. Keep him close to your heart, and he will show you the way.
Ladies and gentlemen, here we are, sitting together, talking about how to save the ecology. When I was preparing for today's talk, I wanted to share with you information about how vital and important fungi are for our planet. But yesterday, I had an experience that made me realize that even the smallest creatures have much more intelligence to preserve the environment in which they live than us humans with this big brain. In this entire universe, the Milky Way galaxy, of which the planet Earth is a part of, is a speck. In that, planet Earth is a microspeck. In that planet Earth, this city is a super microspeck. In this city, your home and office are a super microspeck. And in that, you are a big man. That's where the problem is. All right, so as I was saying, these creatures in the movie, for example, were created in collaboration with an artist, Rebecca Chombordi. We made it for a big psychedelic festival. And so the purpose of these creatures was completely different. It was like a part of installation, and then some of them were sold, some of them came back with us. And this director, Var, he saw them, and he saw them in completely new way. And he like imagined them as characters of mafia. And it was just so hilarious and cool. And also like this mushroom little spirits that were like telling environmental ideas and so on. So these moments are very like precious. Um, yeah. But I don't know. As I said, I'm very strict about collaborations. So I really need to trust the person and see that the person really is ready to be very involved. I gained, for myself, I gained so much more confidence, that being able to say that I was able to work on a movie and actually play a main role in it is quite a thing, and it made me more confident as a person, which really helps. And then it was even shown here at the cinema. It was a very special moment in my life.
So it's done. You've shown it to people. What do you hope that mushroom magic shows people?
First of all, just to attract attention to these smaller things, organisms, right? To shift the perspective. I would say to shift the perspective from human-centered to nature and mushroom-centered, and be more open to learn, be more open to explore, and not be locked in this human-centric vision of the world. And scale is very tricky. It's very tricky. What we see is only because we are of this size, but there is so much more happening on the microscopic and macroscopic size. And hopefully this movie makes people more curious about what's happening in the mushroom world and what it can teach us.
So since doing this, has it opened up other collaborations? Has it inspired your work in certain ways?
Yeah, as I said, I would say like it brought definitely more confidence in experimenting, in opening up to new like opportunities, directions. Like let's say before I had this idea about movie, but I didn't think truly that I am able to do this. Like I'm not how to say educated enough to do this or whatever. Like right now, I would be more open for any new project because it's only through the fear and through this challenge that's how we can explore and grow. Like really, there is no other way. So if now someone reaches out to me and says, let's play a theater play, or like let's do some crazy stuff, I'm like, okay, let's try. I am really working on being more open to crazy projects.
All right, guys. Well, we watched it, and in the description there will be a link to the YouTube. So yeah, man, share it with your friends. Let people check it out. So I just started doing this thing where we're gonna do like some fun rapid fire questions.
Yay.
You know, don't I'm as a creative, I'm sure you've done things like this before. Draw the first, you know, don't think about your pencil, just start drawing and all that kind of stuff. So we're gonna do a version of that. All right, so first question: if you could take people on a mushroom pilgrimage anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Siberia, to shamans working with Amanita.
All right, favorite mushroom to paint versus one that you think is visually overrated.
Oh, I love painting Rhodotus palmatus mushroom. It's a rare mushroom. And I actually think that Amanita muscaria, being a beautiful mushroom, gets too much attention now. Like, there are so many other mushrooms. She's amazing, really, but a little bit too much.
All right, if you could dye clothing with any mushroom pigment, which one would you use?
Oh, I love purple. So there is mushroom called violet deceiver, if I'm not mistaken, and hopefully it would give this purple, crazy, intense color.
All right, next question. Most alien-looking mushroom that you've ever seen in person?
I would say like Hydnalmpeki, you know, this with the red bubbles, or like, it's also called devil's tooth, I think.
One mushroom species that you wished was bioluminescent.
Morels.
You know what? I don't know if that would have been my first guess, but God, please, yes. Can I just go hunting them in the middle of the night?
Yes,
would,
I wish.
Do you ever think how many? Because I'm sure you've been out. It is amazing how you can be looking right at them and still not see them. And I always think for every morel I find, how many are just going to rot in the ground. I get very sad because
it's very painful.
I love that. That's a very selfish choice.
Yes.
Or selfless choice. Yes. Well, it's selfish and selfless. Yes. Morel should be bioluminescent. I love that. I think that's the best answer right there. Now, I think my last final question is just, you know, what's next for you?
So I just, as I said, I opened my exhibition. It was a huge work, so I'm breathing a little bit easier. And I'm planning to, first of all, to come back to teaching, because I teach art science classes. Then it's summer soon. That means there are festivals coming up. So I'm going to most likely be part of some psychedelic fests here in Czech Republic, but also like probably I would like to try maybe other ones in Europe. I already tried Ozora, and there is another cool festival called Modem in Croatia. I already have scheduled sometime in September or October, I think, there will be like a mushroom fest in Vienna, which I will be part of. I am also hoping to start going out more with my sketchbook again and preparing for a new body of work, because I have this project I've been doing for years. I call it Psy Mandalas, and it's like mandalas devoted to different entheogens, to different psychedelic plants and mushrooms and animals. So I still have a lot of plants that I would like to celebrate. I already did some work on iboga, on blue lotus, ayahuasca, and other things. but there's still a lot of like, for example, witch plants that I would like to also celebrate, like mandragora and other stuff. There is also henbane and all these like witch related plants. I got accepted to teach art at the Breaking Conventions, if you know this conference. But it will depend if I get my visa on time. Then I will be there, hopefully.
You know, I know you've talked about this before, but the mushroom vibe in Europe is a little different than the mushroom vibe in the United States. So I think it's good to kind of bring some Europeans on the show and talk about the way mushrooms play into your culture and for you and your creative process. So thank you very much for coming on the show. If people want to check you out, where can they check you out? If they want to support you, how can they support you?
Yeah, so I have an Etsy shop. I have there all kinds of things. Clothes with mushroom and nature related original prints. I have originals. I have just posters and prints and postcards and stickers and everything you can imagine. I have creatures, mushroom creatures, stuff like that. My Etsy shop you can find through the link in bio of my Instagram, or it's www.ireneantonez.art. And also, if you just want to like stay connected, know about upcoming events, whatever I'm teaching or giving lecture or something exciting happening, also to see like behind the scenes of how I work, I have a newsletter. I always share like this intimate behind the scenes stuff there, so you can join also through the link in bio on my Instagram. That's the best way.
All right. Well, I can tell you, I 100% love your newsletter. I finally figured out that I probably should have my own newsletter and email list. So I'm putting that together. And you are definitely one of my inspirational, like, okay, this is what can be done with a newsletter. So yeah, guys, go sign up for our newsletter. Go check out our Etsy shop. Yeah, so support people who love mushrooms and are creating cool, magical, wonderful things that help us feel good about how we love mushrooms.
Oh, and before I forgot, also one more thing. Maybe someone here is looking for like a logo mushroom related inspired art. I've been doing like these projects for years. For example, you can check out like psychedelic conferences, Auckland Hyphae. I've been working with these guys and many other ones, fascinated by fungi and other amazing desert alchemists. I love doing mushroom art for people. It's one of my favorites. It's always fun because I love to create something based on people's like love for certain mushrooms, and it's always fun because everyone has like own vision. And yeah, if there this is something that sounds interesting to you, I'm open to this kind of collaborations as well.
All right, guys, you don't have to use AI or Mid-Journey to create your logos. Everybody's doing that. You don't need to do that. If you really want a logo, something that makes you unique and special and memorable, dear God, please hire a real person to create one for you. And you could definitely do way worse than hire an Irene to do your logo. That would be pretty awesome. So yeah, guys, there you go. It's on the table. Irene will literally help you create a logo. All right. Yeah. It's a cool limitation, right? Like it's just a different creative process when you're being given, some parameters and some ideas and taking that inspiration and vision of somebody else and turning it into something that still is you and has your style.
It can come out very, very unexpected and beautiful. Yeah.
All right. So Instagram, Etsy, website, newsletter, get connected. This is what it's all about, everybody. It's about connecting more deeply with all the quality people that exist in this online mycosphere that we're a part of. So again, Irene, thank you for joining us today. It was a whole lot of fun.
It was amazing. Thank you.
All right, that's a wrap on today's episode. Huge thanks to Irene Antonez for sharing her journey, her creative process, and how fungi continue to shape her art in ways that go way beyond the canvas. If this episode doesn't make you want to grab a microscope and start sketching spores, I don't know what will. If you enjoyed this episode, do me a favor, subscribe, hit the like button, and ring the bell so you never miss a show. And if you want to help keep these deep fungal dives going, check out patreon.com/MycoGeeky. Geek out with me and all my buddies on Patreon and join the mushroom movement. And hey, if you haven't signed up for the email list yet, now's your chance. Next week, one lucky subscriber is taking home a gorgeous pair of handmade spore print earrings from Chris Hansen's studio. Because, I mean, who wouldn't want a little fungal flare dangling from their earlobes? Head over to mycogeeky.com, sign up, and you might be the next winner. Now, I want to hear from you. Have mushrooms ever inspired you to draw, paint, or create? Whether it's a spore print turned into some art or a full-on myco masterpiece, drop a comment below and come on, share your fungal creativity with us. Until next time, stay curious, stay cultivating, and as always, go grow some mushrooms.